Hi, this is Tony Strickland. Welcome to Mayor's Roundtable. I'm Tony Strickland, your mayor, and we have a very, very special guest for our Mayor's Roundtable today. It's our Assemblywoman who fights hard for Huntington Beach. I'll let her explain her whole district. It's a big district, but Diane Dixon, our Assemblywoman who represents us very well up in Sacramento, is our guest speaker. Thanks, Assemblywoman, for taking time.
Tony, it's a great Mayor Tony. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and I welcome to hear all that's going on in Huntington Beach. And I say good morning or good evening whenever this appears to Huntington Beach.
You know what's good is you're not hearing from me. We're hearing from you. Like I'm the Johnny Carson. I'm going to be the one answering the questions.
You're the straight man.
Yeah. So, Assemblywoman, I know your background, but I want the viewers to know your background because you've got an amazing career. You've had an amazing career from the private sector and your success in the private sector to being a local elected official in Newport Beach to now Assemblywoman. Please tell the audience about your background.
Thank you, Tony. I love to tell the story because it's a great story in the sense that I've been very fortunate. I've been very blessed. I had a very successful career in business. And when my husband and I moved from Pasadena to Orange County, I wasn't done yet. And I saw that there was an opening on the Newport Beach City Council, an open seat, open race. And I thought, if not now, when? If not me, who? So I had a career in business, government relations, public affairs, public policy, financial communications. So I really had a broad career in that sense. So I I ran for election in Newport Beach, served as mayor in my first term, and ran for re-election and served as mayor again. And I clearly have today a combination of business background, understanding business, public company business. It was a Fortune 300 company I worked for, a global company, so traveled a lot of different places in the world for 30 years. But now with my local government experience. And so when this assembly seat was redistricted, I asked people who's going to run, who's going to go to Sacramento. There were no takers. And I said, someone's got to run and represent cities. I've just come off the city. I just was terming out on my city council, 8 years on the city council, very familiar with local community, local control issues. We'll talk more about that. So the reality is no one wanted to go to Sacramento. And I thought we needed to have representation representing our cities and our county and business, common sense. We have crime problems. We have homelessness problems. You're very familiar with all of this. I mean, from the city, we are dealing with this. We have housing issues. I said, someone has to go to Sacramento to represent local business, small business, local cities, and bring common sense. So I decided to throw my hat in, and here I am. I'm back.
And as a citizen and a representative of someone in Huntington Beach that voted for you,
thank you.
I know you represent all Huntington Beach, but your district's bigger than Huntington Beach. Maybe explain where your district, because a lot of people don't know how big these Assembly and Senate districts are.
Right. I will also say a lot of people don't know what an assembly person does.
When I was in the assembly, people used to ask me what I assembled. Only when I got to the Senate they understood, but they know what a mayor is. They know what a mayor is. They know what a senator is.
What are you building up there?
What are you assembling up there? Yeah, what is an assemblyman? Yeah, or assemblywoman. So what district? So where's your district go from to?
So I am blessed, truly blessed. And people tell me that in Sacramento because I have the most beautiful coastal cities in California. So it starts at Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, and then I go inland, Laguna Hills, Laguna Woods, Aliso Viejo, and Lake Forest. It's a wonderful district. I'm very pleased. There is a small sliver over near the 405 freeway that is Tritas district in Huntington Beach. But for all intents and purposes, I think of Huntington Beach as my district.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And people in Huntington Beach are you've been there now about 6 months, 7 months.
Yes.
What are your first impressions? You're taking your local government experience, and as someone who's I'm Benjamin Buttons, I did the backwards. I was in the legislature coming back here. Big difference between local government and the way things are operated up in Sacramento. What are maybe the first few thoughts you have in your first 6, 7 months of what's going on and how things actually work in Sacramento?
Well, that's a lot to say, but I know we have only about 15 minutes, but I could take a lot of it. I've enjoyed my time, actually, when people say, oh, how are you doing in Sacramento? Isn't it just terrible? Yes, it is, but I feel that I'm there to make change, and so it doesn't discourage me or overwhelm me. I mean, we all have challenges. This is my challenge, just to bring common sense and to speak common sense on issues that are important to me. I serve as vice chair of local government. I serve as vice chair of accountability and audit. I serve on the Judiciary Committee and Business and Professions. It gives me a voice. I'm, I guess, realistic enough to know that I'm not going to carry the day necessarily, but it's important to put my comments on the record, I believe. Like, for example, sitting on local government, there have been at least a dozen bills that come before the committee just really grabbing power from local government. I saw that as a council person, so I was prepared to. That's why I'm in Sacramento. I saw all the housing bills, and I remember when nobody knew what an ADU was. And what are we doing here? What are ADUs? And then there were 3 more new bills after I started talking about them. I will say, when I speak, and speak in a friendly way to, typically it's a legislator, not necessarily on the committee, who's bringing forward this proposed bill. There was one bill that I said, let me put my local government hat on here, and many others who are of the other party have served on local government, but we end up voting very differently. So I would say, let me put on my local government hat, let me explain what's going to happen if this becomes law, what is going to happen to our cities who are trying to conform with thousands of new laws in the last few years, and small city staffs, and always having to hire consultants to figure out what all this means. And let me just tell you what this particular bill would do in terms of additional costs to local government, in terms of time, they're mandates. I'm very much opposed to mandates, and particularly unfunded mandates. So I give my nice little comments, and people are very polite to me, and it becomes a party line vote. And then I eventually see it on the floor, and so they're all going over to the Senate, those that pass. And so I can't speak on every bill. They'll probably get tired of hearing from me, but I now, I think, gained a reputation that I will speak my mind, and I will tell the truth and speak common sense. So people know that I'm speaking that way.
And I still have friends up in Sacramento. You almost have that reputation, especially on local government. That old commercial, E.F. Hutton, when they talk, people listen. By the way, when I was in the legislature, Todd Spitzer was there. And people, even on both sides, whenever there was a public safety issue that came up, they listened to Todd because Todd knew what he was doing. And you have that same kind of reputation up in Sacramento, that when you speak, people are listening to your experience and that your private sector, but also your local government experience. Tell me a little bit about your bill package. I mean, it's always interesting when you first come. I'll tell you, I had a friend that said, I had a 6-point plan on education reform. I looked at it, I said, well, when all this dies, what do you want to accomplish? And just because I knew where the votes were in the legislature, when you're coming in, you're like, oh, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. But tell me about your bill package.
Well, you're absolutely right. Just to back up to that, it's exactly what I did. So I sit down with my staff. I have to say I have a great staff. First, you have, as you well know, you get to Sacramento and you have to start from zero and create a staff. And because there's just a lot of movement of staff with new people coming in and people leaving. And so I was very fortunate. We have Republicans, I don't know if you know this, because when you were there were more Republicans. We have very small budgets. So I have a chief of staff who's kind of the all-knowing how things get done, who has experience in the legislative process, obviously. She's been there about 12 years. And then we have a ledge director and then a scheduler / assistant. Now, the other party, they have twice as many. If not, maybe even
and their office is 3 times as big.
And budget's 3 times as big. And this is really a very much of a contentious issue. I didn't fully realize that until now. I've been up there and I see the difference. And I saw the difference, just to digress for a moment. I'm also on the Appropriations Committee. I didn't mention that earlier. So, which is good. I'm glad. That was one of my committee choices because I see virtually every bill that comes through. So when I see it here again on the floor, I know why I voted no, probably on the Appropriations Committee, or yes or no, or what have you. That, and over 600 bills went through the Appropriations Committee, and I'm looking at this. This was like 2 weeks ago, going through all these bills and the author and by author, and the average number, and this is more to explore, but the average number of bills introduced by the other party were like 4 or 5 times that of my party, which is the Republican Party. I mean, they introduced 20 bills. Back to your original question, I introduced 6 or 7.
Right.
And so my staff, back to that point, well-versed in how legislation moves and where I should strike first. And so I didn't want to come in and just start burning bridges. I wanted to get things done. I wanted to establish a reputation for working on both sides, getting bipartisan support. So then when it gets to the other house, then there's more traction. So I did a couple of, from a local government standpoint, interestingly enough, in fact, your recent success in recovering that money from the state of California, I actually did a bill for Lake Forest, the city of Lake Forest, to do the very same thing.
Oh, great.
They have money. Lake Forest didn't sue the state. This is before my time. It's just that they've been trying to get this money back before they did a lawsuit. And so I introduced a bill. It was unanimously approved and all through the Assembly, and now it's over in the Senate. And hopefully it will be signed by the governor. But so Lake Forest I think they have like $12 million that they're trying to recover.
Thanks for fighting for it.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
And I'll have to say, your local staff does an incredible job.
Thank you.
And you've done an incredible job at reaching out. I know as a mayor, I'm very appreciative of getting your council and the mayor's calls together.
Yes.
And you've been very active out there and doing town halls and things like that. And I will tell you, you have an amazing district staff, because people don't understand, you're up in Sacramento Monday through Thursday.
Yes.
And then
they're doing all the work.
When you land on Thursday, you're full on your schedule from Thursday through Sunday. But that Monday through Thursday, it's important to have a strong district staff that's out there in the community, and I will commend. You've done a really good job at hiring some really good people.
I hadn't gotten to my district staff. They're terrific too. A small group of 3.
Yeah.
They're very effective. To your point, I wish I could be at every local community ribbon cutting and store opening and special event and ceremony. I can't if I'm in Sacramento Monday through Thursday, as you said. So my Cooper Stroll and Bill Christensen and Janine Eggers, they're fantastic. And it's a tight little team. And I have found in my business career, I worked for a manufacturing company, so it wasn't like a plethora of money. We all worked hard and everybody pitches in. It's a tight little group. We get a lot done. So reaching out to the community is absolutely critical. And the cities in South County are new to me. And so the Laguna I'm familiar with very well as a neighboring city, but the Laguna Hills, Laguna Woods, and Aliso Viejo and Lake Forest, wonderful communities getting to know the local government, I've had a couple town halls down there. I enjoy it. It's funny, let me talk about town halls, because you do a lot of it too. It's a natural instinct for you, as it is for me. Working in a corporation, town halls are very common.
Yeah.
And I worked for the CEO for 30 years, and I was always saying, we've got to get the employees. It's not just the employees, it's the shareholders, it's the investors, it's the customers, constantly meeting with your stakeholders. So that's what I knew as a way of life when I ran for city council. There had never been a town hall that I'm aware of in Newport Beach. So but the first month I'm on the city council, we were still in when the old city council building was still built. The new council building or the city hall had been built. So Diane Dixon, new council person, announcing the city hall. People were sitting in rafters, and they were sitting on the floor in the aisles. No one had ever talked to them really before.
Right.
And it was a wonderful thing. I ended up having 35 town halls in my 8 years. They always had to cut me back when I was running for office, because you can't commingle. Not that I would, but they were afraid I would. But people just want to be heard and respected and listened to. And
I always say God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I always say, when I'm doing those town halls, getting the voices from your constituents, one, it makes you a better legislator.
Of course.
I take those voices with me to City Hall. You take them with you to the state capitol.
Yes.
And one of the biggest complaints that you get from some of the citizens is, I only see you around election time. And people want to have that input. People, whether I
learned from that.
Absolutely, we all do, and that's why I'm commending you, because I made a big point as mayor that I'm doing a lot of these town halls. I'm out in the community. you've done a remarkable job as an assemblywoman.
It's just we're here to serve, and you might as well serve.
Yeah.
And so when I meet with the local mayors or on my Zoom calls with each of the mayors and city managers, I really say, what can I do for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
I'm here, your voice in Sacramento. I cannot make a lot of promises back to my legislative agenda. So I really was trying to be, just not a gunslinger. I just wanted to get things done my first year to show that I could work. And I have developed great relationships. I don't know if they'll always support what I do, but when they're city focused, they will. Now, they know that I'm going to vote no. The other party people will know I'll vote no if it's going to harm a city, or if it works against the best interests of a city. It's an easy no. And it's not ideological. It's just common sense. Cities can manage themselves. And there was another bill, real quickly, that was going to mandate, it actually passed, but I spoke against it and I voted against it, that all cities, you'll be getting this, your people will be getting this shortly, that you have to do an inventory of all public restrooms every year. And I said, why? The cities, we needed a public restroom in my district in Newport Beach. I talked to Public Works, and they were building a new fire station, and lo and behold, they put 2 public bathrooms in the parking lot of the fire station. It's one of the best public restrooms in Newport Beach. Why not just talk to your people, talk to the residents? They want more restrooms. Okay, there's not enough, or this one doesn't work. You tell the city staff, they'll get it done. Or if we have to build a new restroom, that will go through the process. We don't need the state to tell us to count how many public bathrooms we have.
It's funny because, one, it's an unfunded mandate. They'll say that, but they're not bringing in the state resources down for us to pay for it. That's one. Two, I'm out there saying in public, Governor, you have enough issues to deal with, from a water crisis, energy crisis, transportation crisis, homeless crisis, and everything else. How about focusing on being governor instead of being mayor of Huntington Beach?
Yeah. I love that.
Like, he should stay at his job.
Yes.
And look, someone 400 miles away, 500 miles away.
They don't know.
He doesn't know our peer. He doesn't know Huntington Beach.
One size does not fit all.
Yeah, exactly.
I say this all the time.
Exactly.
Back to my impressions of Sacramento, it's like all the laws in the country or the state have really, all the innovative laws have really been discovered. Now it's, what more can the state do to get in your way? Get in your way, get into your personal life, another new law, another new this or that, housing. What can they do to take control? I call it central planning, Soviet style, frankly.
Well, and from my experience when I was in Sacramento, a lot of the legislators judged their success on how many bills they passed. I'm like, do we really need 22 or 25, as you said?
No.
People doing a package of 30 bills. Do you really need 30 new regulations in the state?
No.
And then times that by 120 members of the legislature?
Yeah.
The answer is absolutely no.
Yes. Every single part of our lives, somebody is looking at ways to make it tweak a little bit differently to make sure whatever wrong is corrected, that really private industry or the marketplace could have corrected. Well, don't get me going. Here's the other big thing. I don't know if you've heard about this. Now, it does relate to Newport Beach, but it affects a lot of people in Orange County. It's the Balboa Island Ferry. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, real quick, because it really is writ large the problem we have in California about over-regulation. And the California Air Resources Board has mandated that all the changes, automobiles, trucks, everything. Okay, that regulators are regulating our lives. Okay, and maybe you were in the legislature in 2006. Were you when these bills, AB 32 and SB 32?
I was not in 06. I was actually from 98 to 4, and then I was 8 to 12. So I just missed 06.
Well, you know those bills, because that was the enabling legislation that gave to CARB, this is California Air Resources Board, huge power to transform industry, our lives. Well, anyway, real quick, they have told the Balboa Island Ferry family that's owned it for 110 years that unless you have an electric motor by December 31st, 2024, now they told them this 2 years ago, you have to shut down. So he tells me in January, I just been up there for 3 weeks, And he said, Diane, I've got to meet with you. So I sat down with him. I said, you've got to be kidding. Now, I had written a letter as mayor to ask for a delayed implementation for the fisher boats, the commercial fishing boats. They lobbied as a large group, and they've got an exemption to 2035. They also were going to be under the 2024 deadline. Well, this little Balboa Island ferry, there are 3 of them, and there's 6 in the state of California, and they're just too small to fight this. There's no technology on the power side.
Right.
And the boat design has to be recreated because the whole battery, which doesn't exist, there's no boat design that can be possible, plus the whole infrastructure. So I've been dealing with CARB on this. He has to do, the owner, Mr. Beek, has to file all the papers. So he's in the process. There are a mile-high application to get an exemption. And if it doesn't, I will introduce a bill to save the Balboa Island Ferry. It's not just Newport Beach people. It's visitors from all over. The county, wherever they are coming. They go to Disneyland and they'll come to Newport Beach and ride the ferry. And plus, if without a ferry going that 800 feet, it uses 23 gallons of gas a day, people are going to be driving around the city and the peninsula. Yeah. So many new Huntington Beach people, many Orange County people, visitors from elsewhere, of our millions of visitors who come to our coastal cities, will be experiencing this. And it's crazy. So it's just writ large, the craziness.
It is crazy. In fact, CARB, when I was in the legislature, I actually went to testify on behalf of these crane operators. And I said, do you realize that what you're mandating, the technology doesn't exist?
Yes, and they know that.
And they say, oh yeah, no, we know it doesn't exist, but that's why we make this regulation, so people can, get to that point. I'm like, are you kidding me? So you're mandating something that doesn't exist. And the biggest problem I have with like CARB or all these agencies, there's no accountability.
No.
And when I was in the legislature, when I was in the legislature, I always fought against anything that empowered the Coastal Commission, CARB, because at the end of the day, if someone doesn't like what you do or what I do, they can vote us out.
Yeah.
But they don't like these agencies, there's nothing they can do.
Well,
and they're actually more powerful than many of the legislators.
Well, it's absolutely true, because it's been talked about a lot on the national level that they're administrative state.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're in control.
We need to, in my opinion, we need to cut those agencies out and their power and the authority and put it right back into where it belongs, and that belongs with the people who are representatives, people who represent and actually get voted in, because again, it's about the voice of that voter and the individual. If you don't like what they do, you vote them out.
Business people, small business. This is writ large for the small business problems in California. Now, the big companies, but I talked with the California Trucking Association. I said, what are you guys going to do? We don't have the power. How are you going to drive a diesel truck from the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles out to wherever or across the country? There's no battery, but they think business will solve it.
Well, you know what's going to happen is all the ports in Texas are like, thank you.
Yeah.
Who are just not going to come in here. They're going to go in other states.
I have a story about that. Well, there's so many stories. You have a wonderful company here in Huntington Beach, Ray's Distributing Company. I hadn't been familiar with them until we had a tour. They are doing all the green energy work that they need to do. And they're an example of a large company who can afford to do it. And they're a wonderful company, wonderful people there. I just gave them a plug, but they are good people. But it's the small people that don't have the financial wherewithal. They don't have a legal team to analyze all the regulations. Now, the California Trucking Association does, and they're complying, but there's no market. I say when I speak about this, let the marketplace get us there. There were no regulations that made us change from the horse and buggy to the automobile, and it happened. And we all know, everybody's talking about this. I mean, the gas stations are bills to eliminate. Some cities have already passed local ordinances to prohibit the building of another gasoline station.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that is if every California resident plugged in an electric car,
can't do it.
We don't have the energy to do so.
And in this mindless march to this, here's what I've learned, is that those who are advocating for this change, this rapid change, not only is California the first in the nation already, in terms of the zero emissions. I mean, we're at 0.001 percentage point, better than anyone else. They want to be first in the world. And I'm just concerned about California, frankly.
Yeah.
Anyway, the absolute draconian measures that are killing our businesses. Do you know also that the supply chain that services the green energy companies that are in development, you know where they live? Arizona, Nevada, Texas. That is, I mean, we all have seen the data that 700,000 people have packed their U-Hauls and are going east.
Yes.
And the consequence, and Governor Newsom doesn't talk about this, we have a shortfall. We have a budget deficit of $32 million, correct?
Billion.
Excuse me, billion. That's just been...
When you start, I would say it's millions, and when you're in the legislature, or when you're in local government,
then a
billions, and then trillions in the federal government.
Yeah, okay. All right, 32 billion. Well, coincidentally, the personal income tax revenue to the state of California from high income earners or just income earners who have left, IRS can identify this by zip code and tax filings. They've left California. $50 billion worth of income to the state of California. And we have, coincidentally, a $32 billion deficit. So he doesn't care, but here we are dealing with the ramifications. And so I'm going back up to Sacramento next week, and that's budget week. And we'll see where they do the cutting and the pasting, because it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, my first budget was very interesting when I was in the legislature. And you know what's amazing for our audience to really think about? I left the legislature in 2012, and our overall budget was $98 billion. And I believe your budget's now at around
$115 billion.
Yeah. And so, you know, in less than 10 years, you've more than doubled.
You know, and that goes back to the bills I see, and I guess you saw it there too. Every single bill has a cost to it. And being on appropriations.
That's on appropriations. You see them all.
I see it all. Anything over $150,000, it goes through appropriations. It's just, what more can we spend money on? What more can we spend money on? What more can we spend money on?
And it's not like the money comes from the sky.
They don't.
It actually is taken away from individuals who are you know, employing hardworking families. And again, when you keep taxing them, a lot of times what happens is they end up leaving to other states.
Well, yeah. I mean, you hear too many stories, but it's the relentless taking. But I also found it'd be interesting what you had when you were in Sacramento. I bet I could count on two fingers how many people in the 120-member legislature, 80 in the Assembly and 40 in the Senate, ever have worked in business.
Right.
I don't think they have.
Right.
They don't know. Because when I hear the California Trucking Association get that response, well, your business, you can figure it out. They don't know the connection between making enough money to earn a profit, to grow, to hire more people. They don't see that connection.
And having a demand that you need more
to grow.
That you need more to grow. You just don't hire to hire like government.
Yeah.
You actually have to have demand in order to grow your company, and that's why you hire more people, is you need to meet that demand.
Well, let me just tell you one bill that you're going to be hearing about and reading about very shortly that passed through the Assembly. It's been tried several years, and franchisees are a wonderful group of business people. That whether it's McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or a hot dog, that mainly immigrant families. And all families collectively pool their money, or the members of the family pool their money to buy a franchise, to have their own business, to be an owner of a business. There's a bill that passed this week that if there's any worker complaint or unfair labor charge, then the franchise or the national company, whether it's McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or In-N-Out Burger, nationally, not just the local owner, national brand, will be pulled into this lawsuit.
Oh my gosh.
And so we had all the franchise, the big companies didn't, I guess they stayed away, but the local franchise owners who are the small business people, and they're often first or second or third generation families. I met more of them. My grandfather started this, and they have college scholarship programs for their employees.
Right.
They have work training programs. Are there bad apples? Probably, as employers, whatever. You deal with them. But to now have the state involved in adjudicating a worker-employee relationship issue is a problem in my mind.
Do you know that number?
I don't.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure we get that number in the city. We need to put an opposition letter in, something like that.
Well, it's going to the Senate now.
Yeah, we got to support our small business.
Yes.
Anyways, this went by really quick.
It did. Too
and
short.
I really appreciate your time. I thank you for your service. You're a remarkable Assemblywoman. You've got a remarkable career, and thank you so much for representing Huntington
Well,
Beach.
Mayor Tony, you're the best. And I love learning from you and your experience. It's been very helpful to me. And let's continue to work together.
I'm looking forward to that. And
Good.
and God bless you. Thank you so much.
bless you.
Thanks everybody for joining our show. Again, this is the Mayor's Roundtable, and I'm your mayor, Tony Strickland, and I'm looking forward to seeing you out in the community very soon.